From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Focusing on conservation.
So the rotational grazing that we've found here, that seems to work pretty well for our environment.
While building on profitability. See how producers are making it work as our Sustainable Ranchers Tour continues. Tropical Storm Debbie roars back to life.
When we get this much water and the rivers back up on us, and there's really not a whole lot we can do.
See the impacts continuing to be felt on the East Coast as big changes are coming to loans at the Farm Service Agency.
It's our belief that profitable producers are better for everybody in the food value chain in rural America.
What the agency is doing to beef up its lending efforts right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Pioneer brand corn has game-winning statistics like a 10 bushel per acre yield advantage. Pioneer brand corn, your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The Farm Service Agency announcing changes to its farm financing programs, calling them the most significant changes in the last 40 years. Now, those changes coming under the Enhancing Program Access for Delivery for Farm Loans rule. The agency saying the rule helps producers currently using its loan programs as well as improves opportunities for those looking for new loans. The goal, promote producer profitability and resilience. Now, key revisions include the creation of the Distressed Borrower Set-Aside Program. It allows distressed or delinquent borrowers with direct USDA loans to defer one annual loan installment at a reduced interest rate. Flexible repayment plans will also be introduced to help eligible loan applicants improve profitability and build cash reserves. Now, the plan aims to create upfront positive cash flow, enabling borrowers to include a reasonable margin for increased working capital reserves and savings for retirement and education. Additionally, the agency will relax loan security requirements for direct farm loans.
We really think that this is a great opportunity to reframe the conversation between the borrowers on our portfolio and the creditors who may provide the credit, the extra credit that they might need. Having a retirement fund built into this can help ease that generational transfer and help enable us to recruit young farmers and ranchers back to the farm. Being able to pay for your health insurance from your production income, because FSA can make adjustments to our terms to allow for that, might be able to help them step out of that job that they've got over there in the town 40 miles away because they need the health insurance. They can pay for that for their family on their own terms.
The amended farm loan rules take effect on September 25th. And there is a bit of good news on the farm finances front. Farm bankruptcies are at a record low. The American Farm Bureau Federation says coming off a year of record high commodity prices and higher net farm incomes in 2022, overall farm loan delinquency rates dropped in 2023. Now, it says, according to U.S. courts, 139 farm bankruptcies were filed in 2023. That's down 18% from 2022 and continues a 4-year decline since a high was reached of just under 600 filings back in 2019. Now, only one region of the country, the Southwest, saw increases in filings. The Southwest hit hard by extreme drought in 2022, which cut harvest yields. Now, Texas specifically seeing the most bankruptcy filings last year. However, AFBF warns the lower trend is unlikely to continue due to projections for this year showing net farm income would be down nearly 40% from 2022, along with higher production costs. Tropical Storm Debbie roared back ashore along South Carolina's coast early Thursday, bringing with it heavy rains, storm surge, and tornadoes across the Carolinas. As Laura Geary reports, the Mid-Atlantic is in the crosshairs next.
I dropped down to my knees and went to prayer.
Norman Toller was rousted from bed Thursday morning by a tornado bearing down on his North Carolina home.
I said, Lord, you know, I've worked all my life for what I got here. Please don't take it.
It whirled past with only feet to spare, but his neighbor was not as lucky. A body recovered from this Wilson County home, adding to Debbie's death toll. About 70 miles southwest, this tornado swirled through Sampson County Wednesday. Residents in its path joining other storm victims on a long road to recovery At one point Thursday, over 5 million people were under a tornado watch from North Carolina into southern Virginia. The days-long wave of twisters exacerbating already catastrophic storm impacts.
It's heart-wrenching.
Flooding remains a major issue. Since Monday, Debbie has dumped more than a foot of rain over parts of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Forecasters say several dozen river gauges across the southeast could reach or exceed major flood levels and possibly stay that way into next week.
When we get this much water and the rivers back up on us, and there's really not a whole lot we can do.
Members of North Carolina's National Guard have been mobilized to assist in search and rescue.
We asked North Carolinians to be careful, to be safe, to pay attention to local officials.
Debbie is expected to pick up speed as it moves toward the northeast into Saturday. And dangerously high heat is straining storm recovery in Florida and Georgia, where thousands of customers still remain without power. In Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm Laura Aguirre reporting.
Heavy rain in the east, while dangerous heat continues in the southern plains and in the Gulf Coast. Meteorologist Jack Van Meter joins us with an update.
Yeah, part of the reason we're going to be seeing so much rainfall on the East Coast is this. It's going to be Tropical Storm Debbie as it made its actual second landfall on the United States in the Carolinas. And it's going to be tracking up throughout the eastern seaboard. We can see Debbie right now just as this mass of clouds, and it's just going to continue to weaken and actually keeps on giving the threat of severe weather each day it tracks more northward. Also, it's dumping just an absolutely incredible amount of rain as it does move up and northward throughout the country. And actually, it's causing effects out west too, because it's actually blocking the jet stream for any troughs to get through. It's pretty much just deflecting everything. So right now, actually out west, we have this big ridge of hot air that's just pretty much sitting up out there and really causing some adverse conditions out there. And this will continue to track up north and dissipate into Canada. And another crop of wheat getting harvested. Benjamin Bring of Galesburg, North Dakota, sharing the scene with beautiful blue skies over there. Benjamin says the view is nice from the cab too. I'll have your forecast coming up.
Well, prices are higher for a lot of things these days. One place people may be saving a little money is at the gas pump. Right now, the average price of a gallon of gas is around $3.44 a gallon. That's according to AAA. Now, that's lower than last year by about 37 cents. Diesel is averaging $3.78 a gallon, down about 42 cents from a year ago. Now, market watchers say concerns about a slowing economy in the U.S. and China have led to lower expectations for global oil demand, along with seasonal trends. Gas prices often decline in the fall as the summer driving season ends, meaning less fuel demand there. Plus, the U.S. is on track to produce record amounts of crude oil, which could help cushion against potential supply disruptions. GasBuddy.com says gas prices are expected to average around $3.38 a gallon this year. Well, cattle markets are trying to balance lower inventories with global economic turbulence. We'll discuss that next. And later, part 3 of our trip to the Nebraska Sandhills, where ranchers are working within the ecosystem in order to create a sustainable future. Two more ag companies reporting earnings this week. Both CF Industries and Nutrien reported strong second quarter profits, surpassing expectations. CF Industries attributing its success to increased ammonia production and higher nitrogen prices, which compensated for lower volumes and pricing. The company reported net sales of $1.57 billion and net earnings per share of $2.30. Nutrien says its profits were driven by higher potash sales in offshore markets. The company forecasting 2024 potash sales volumes between 13.2 million and 13.8 million metric tons. However, Nutrien noted core profits for its retail sales are expected to decline due to high inventories and subdued demand in Brazil. The cattle markets pressing lower again on Thursday with concerns about a possible recession continuing to weigh on investors' minds. AgDay's Michelle Rook has more on what it will take to bring about a recovery in markets now.
Joining us with market, Scott Varlick with Koima Varlick. Scott, we have seen a pretty good correction in the cattle market in tandem with the pullback in the stock market. If the stock market can stabilize, how much recovery can we see in the cattle market, do you think?
A question we all would love to have the answer to, because it's been quite the debacle here with the stock market and how fast we corrected this market. So we turn to the cash and say, okay, is the cash holding together? Because that's still pretty good. And this is your Labor Day buying week, so packers, are still going to want some cattle. So I think that's kind of our chance to try to get a little bit of a boost on some of that cash. As far as measuring some recoveries, I think you say, hey, these futures are still well below the cash, so putting on $3, $4, $5 could happen fairly fast. And cash feeders, we did break the $10 to $15. The index is still $10 above where the August feeders are. So there should be plenty of room for recovery as long as that stock market can try to hold here a little bit.
Yeah, but we did put some new lows in the feeder market, as you point out, and those charts look horrible. So, does it matter? Can you heal technically in this type of environment?
Short-term charts look rough, looking at these monthly, spikes lower that we have, but long-term, we're still holding these nice uptrends. We're still feeling okay. The thing that makes you nervous is you see how much room is lower. You see how high we are compared to history when you try to, expand that out a little bit, and there is room lower, and we know eventually that's going to happen. When we come into more numbers, it doesn't feel like that supply right now is overrunning us. So I think we're holding some of these long-term charts now. The live cattle held the 2014 highs and some of those next year summer months. I like to see that.
And demand looks like it's been holding together, and now we're getting ramped up for Labor Day buying, right? So that should help.
Demand has just been rock solid. I mean, we've been through so many, battles in the last 4 years, and that's the one thing that's just held true. You have a consumer that wants beef.
All right, thanks for joining us. Scott Varlick with Koima Varlick. We'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
We can see today that temperatures once again are going to skyrocket, especially down in Texas. Take a look at Brownsville down there at 109 degrees as that high temperature. Phoenix also pretty hot. No shocker there, though. They are in the desert at 108. But these high temperatures are going to continue throughout the week as well. But our low temperatures and tomorrow morning going to be just a little cooler throughout the nation, too, as we can see some cooler air is finally making its way down south. Cooler and, more importantly, drier air, so it's not going to be as humid. But then the high for tomorrow, once again, going to be pretty much a repeat of what we saw today. Again, Brownsburg going to be at 108. Once again, San Antonio 107 degrees, but thankfully we can see Chicago's at a kind of actually cool for this time of year, only 77 degrees. Drought monitor just came out, so let's go ahead and see the changes that we are noticing here at AgDay. I do want to zoom into the eastern seaboard of the United States, where we are actually seeing that extreme drought in parts of West Virginia and Maryland. But good news is we are going to be seeing a lot of rainfall. And honestly, it could be too much rainfall as Debbie tracks forward and just continues to dump rain. It's actually dumping right around 5 to 10 inches of rain on the eastern seaboard. So they will be getting some relief. Fortunately, it doesn't really look like the western part of the country, especially out here in Montana, where they're seeing that exceptional drought. Doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of relief coming that way, especially when you take a look at our precipitation outlook. Pretty average for much of the country. Now, the jet stream, we are seeing a trough start to make its way through the northern part of the country. But as that trough starts to move through, we can see that ridge builds, and we are going to be seeing that heat and humidity build throughout the middle part of the country as well. Santa Fe, New Mexico, high of 76, low of 55. They're seeing thunderstorms, though. Huntsville, Alabama, sunny, high of 90 degrees, low of 66 degrees. And Clarksville, Tennessee, sunny, 87, 60.
creating plants that show you they're stressed. We'll tell you about one company that's doing it next. And later, protecting the plants covering Nebraska's sandhills. We're off to see how these ranchers are embracing the challenge for their future. Wouldn't it be great if soybeans could just show you when they're having problems? Well, that's the idea behind a new ag startup. The company is called Interplant. It's a seed company that's created a transgenic early stress alerting seed trait in soybeans. When infected by a disease, the soybeans can display a color change. For now, the company is using stationary detection towers to scan the plants that are giving off a fluorescent signal, and they're able to see what human eyes cannot, where stress is taking hold in a field at a plant-by-plant level within 1 to 2 days of the initial infection. Now, the company recently raising $30 million in funding, much of that money coming from farmers themselves. Farm Journal's tech reporter Matthew Grassi says soon you will see the company launching its futuristic seeds with select farms in Illinois and Iowa. And Matthew also providing an update on Rantizo's Acre Connect software on agweb.com. Now he says it is now connected with the John Deere Operations Center. The new application programming interface allows operators to share as covered and as applied maps directly with customers that use the John Deere Operations Center. He says this ensures that spray records are included with other application and field information. The Chief Product Technology Officer at Rantizo says connecting Acre Connect to the John Deere Operations Center supports the company's promise to deliver better service. And he says both independent operators and those at retail locations now have the ability to share application data directly to a grower's account. All right, coming up, connecting the dots between conservation and production. We'll hear how this ranch is handling the challenge in Nebraska today in the country. The sandhills of Nebraska are a fragile ecosystem that presents annual challenges for ranchers to run cattle and operate profitably. On the recent Trust in Beef Sustainable Ranchers Tour, AgDay's Michelle Rook got to see firsthand how the focus on conservation and grassland management is helping ranchers be sustainable for the future.
Here in Nebraska, ranchers face many threats to the sustainability of their operations. One common one you might think of is the adversity from Mother Nature and weather. One that you may not think about, though, is woody encroachment. The loss of grasslands to cedars has been escalating the last 2 decades as this native and now invasive species has spread from the south to the northern plains.
There's nothing else that has that kind of big picture impact to our production, our entire ecosystem, because you're literally losing your grassland.
We brought in all these cedar trees, and they were great for windbreaks and different things. We never really thought about how they might reproduce and spread out on our grassland.
In fact, Nebraska producers are losing up to 420,000 tons of grasslands annually to eastern red cedars.
They remove that grassland resource, and so you're talking about a 75% loss of carrying capacity.
Farmers can improve that with prevention, but if they have to eradicate, it's most effective when cedars are low in density. But it's expensive, even with a 75% cost share from the Sandhills Task Force.
So you start doing the math, that's like $1,000 per acre for 1,000 acres. That's $1 million, and why that cost share is so important.
But ranchers are also collaborating on control.
Some are even doing prescribed burns as a collective group, burning across multiple properties. Others are using mechanical or just managing that fence line.
Even without woody plants, it can be tough, though, to produce enough grass in the sandhills.
You know, one of the things that is kind of a perennial challenge is matching the number of animals with the amount of forage that's out here.
Grazing management is helped by allowing pastures rest time.
So the rotational grazing that we've found here that seems to work pretty well for our environment is providing recovery during different periods in different years. So you're shifting the timing of grazing on certain pastures to allow different plant species.
The other big threat to grasslands in Nebraska is row crop conversion.
Obviously that becomes an increasingly discussion today because we incentivize some areas that, it's for a perceived or real economic value, But some of those years we would have, it'd been more sustainable to keep it in grassland.
So as we lose that, we lose a lot of our biodiversity. It's really hard after you've converted the land from rangeland to cropland to bring that biodiversity back, even if you were to plant it back into grass.
And while managing grass can make ranchers sustainable over time, they must also remain profitable. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Quentin Grivis. Have a great day.